one moment. I just forgot that, so I'm reading my music off of an iPad here, and I just realized that I probably need to put it in airplane mode, so if someone calls, I'm not, my screen doesn't go blank. That's happened before at a concert, so give me 1 second.
That was lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So you guys probably have heard that piece before. Actually, I need my microphone. You've probably heard that piece before.
Yep.
It's very famous and well known, highly recognized from commercials and everything. But it's the Prelude from Suite One in G major for solo cello by Johann Sebastian Bach. And what is interesting about the solo suites for cello is that there are six of them, with six movements each. And the fact that they were written for solo cello is definitely what I find interesting, because the cello back in that day and time was seen as a supporting instrument. So it wasn't really a solo instrument at all. It was more of a supporting instrument, and it would do things like play the bass line along with a harpsichord that is accompanying another instrument. So it really was like a bassline instrument. It's not meant, or it wasn't invented to play a bunch of chords. It has a curved bridge, so you're only meant to play like one string at a time. So the fact that Bach wrote these suites for such a lowly instrument like the cello is kind of telling to me. So Bach was a Baroque composer. A lot of you know that already. And in the Baroque era, harmony was super important. It wasn't about melody or rhythm or anything. It was all about harmony and how the bass line and the melody line interact. And in this suite, we don't have an instrument to play a bass line. We don't have an instrument to play the melody line. We just have the cello. It's kind of crazy to think that Bach wrote these pieces just for this one instrument. But you'll hear, because I'm gonna play this entire suite for you, just the first suite, which has six movements, but I'm gonna space them out among some other pieces that I like to play. But you'll hear when I'm playing the movements from the Bach suite that there's a lot of harmony in there, but I have to break up the chords. So I'll play like an arpeggio kind of thing, like at the beginning of the Prelude. That's what I was doing there. That's a G major chord that I just had to kind of break up because, again, cello is a single voice instrument. We don't know why Bach wrote these suites, but I have a personal just idea. Like, I have a little story about Bach in my mind. So in 1717, he got a really nice job as a music director for a prince. But then in 1720, he was still working for this prince, and he went on basically a business trip. And while he was gone, his wife died. So I feel like at this time, he must have been going through a lot of anguish. His wife died. And this is right when he wrote these, or it's right when we think he wrote these six suites, because we can't be certain exactly when they were written. But it makes me think about him as a human being, grieving and mourning. And I know we've all been there, but sometimes it's nice to have something to distract you for a little bit. So I feel like maybe he needed a slightly complicated project. So he decided to write this harmonic material for this single-voiced instrument. And these pieces are some of the most complicated and nuanced things that I have ever played. I feel like I will live my whole life and never feel completely confident about playing this Bach. It is just jam-packed full of amazing things. So the Prelude that I just played for you is always at the beginning of the dance suite. And believe it or not, the prelude was like a time in the suite where the instrumentalist would be warming up, tuning. I can't imagine tuning while playing that. Checking your instrument and the acoustics of the place where you're playing, quieting a loud audience, which I definitely don't have to do tonight because everyone is so muted here. You kind of can also set the tone with the prelude, and you can show off your improvisation skills. Bach didn't actually allow a lot of improvisation in his suites because he was kind of a control freak, and he wrote out a bunch of the notes. So so that's about the prelude. I'm going to talk about each movement of the dance suite as it comes up in the program. And it's going to be interspersed in there it's going to be a club sandwich of different things that I'll be playing. So I'll let you know about those other pieces as we come to them. And so now I'm going to be playing what I like to call a mashup. It's a piece, two pieces basically that I try to sew together and make one big piece out of. And this next one, oh my goodness. Stand by. My computer was talking to me. Is this next piece is a mashup of two pieces. It's one of my mom's favorite hymns called On Eagle's Wings, and it has a lot of the elements from the prelude that I just played. So I wanted to play it right after the prelude so you could hear those elements that should be very familiar to you. Here's On Eagle's Wings. Oh, this is definitely weird. I'm just imagining.
Lovely. Bravo,
Oh,
bravo,
thanks.
bravo.
I'm just imagining the clapping. I'm just hoping
Uh,
that it's there. Oh, thank you.
woo!
Thank you so much. I keep wondering like if everybody's doing okay. I can't see very many faces. Which I get it. You know, you want to turn off your screen and stuff, but if you have any problems hearing or anything, just wave, and maybe we can take care of that. But I'm gonna move forward in the program, and I'm sure you'll let me know if something goes wrong here. I keep seeing weird things on my computer, like I'm muted or something, but that's not true, right, everybody?
No, this is
Nope.
lovely. That was lovely.
Okay.
It was
Oh,
beautiful.
oh,
Perfect.
great,
Thank
great,
you.
great, great. Okay, so I'm moving on to the second piece in our dance suite, which is the Allemande. And Allemande it's the French word for German, which we think it both refers to the origin of the dance and also the characteristics of it. The dance is very deliberate and intense, and my teacher would always tell me that in this dance, the men would be wearing swords. So she said, it was very serious and that I needed to knit my brow when I played this one. So I find myself doing that a lot with this. But yes, so without further ado, here is the Allemande. This is the second dance in Bach's Suite Number 1.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you.
Well, I really love the Allemande like that because it has a fun little a couple of characteristics that I really like. There's this sighing gesture you probably heard. Some people think that gives it an extra flavor of like resignation. And then there's at the end of each section, so it has two sections of the piece. At the end of each section, it kind of ends and then has a little tag on the end. And that's where I imagine all the dancers are taking a bow at the end of the piece. So it like ends there, but then it just sounds like they're just like, and thank you for the dance. So I really love that movement. Well, so on to the next thing. We're going to get a little more pop right now. As Karen mentioned, I have the privilege of getting to play in the pit when musicals need it, when they come through town. And I just absolutely love the Fox. It's just a dream every time I get to walk from the parking deck to the Fox with my cello on my back. I'm pinching myself the whole time that I'm doing that because it's such a fun, amazing job to play the cello for musicals that come through town. Sadly, I just found out I was going to be playing in a show, I think at the end of July, Anastasia, and I found out that it has been canceled. And I'm pretty sure next season is probably not going to happen either. But anyway, that's a little bit distressing, but I'm hoping it's going to bounce back here soon. But I'm going to play you a piece that I arranged from one of my favorite musicals, and it's one that my dad and stepmother took me to as a young person on Broadway. And I never forgot that experience. It was so magical. Anyway, here is my solo cello rendition of All I Ask of You from Phantom of the Opera. so much. You're doing extra work unmuting yourself and just to clap. That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, so we are to the movement in the Bach suite. It's pretty fast. It's called a courant, and that's the French version of the Italian word corrento, which means running. It's the simplest of the movements, and probably the fastest. But it's very fun, so I hope you enjoy the courant. Thank you. Okay. So we're getting to kind of the faster portion of the program. I really love playing slow things, slow and melancholy things. Any of my students here will tell you that. But this part of the program is a little bit faster. I'm segueing from the courant into another mashup. I love mashups. I don't know what it is. I just love putting two things that really don't seem like they could go together. I love smushing them together and seeing what happens. And this next song is, I started out with Simple Gifts, which I just love that song. And I decided it needed some spice added, so I put with it an Irish jig called the Irish Girl, which technically I am because one of my grandparents, my father's mother, was Irish. The rest of my grandparents are German, so yes, so I'm technically an Irish girl. So here is Simple Gifts with an Irish flair.
Lovely. Thank you.
So much, you guys. Thank you. Well, now we're getting a little more Irish, and I have to play you my dad's favorite, which is Londonderry Air, but most of us know it better as Danny Boy.
Wow. Wow.
Lovely. Lovely, lovely.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't think I've ever gotten a wow before. I really appreciate that. Well, we are to the center of the dance suite now. Going
Yes.
back to some Bach. Um, the center of the suite is the Sarabande, and the Sarabande has a really mysterious origin. We don't know exactly. Some people think that it's a dance from South America. Some think that it's from North Africa via Spain. But really, all that you need to know about the Sarabande is that the it was a really exotic dance where the dancers would strike a pose on the second beat. So it would go, you would basically step on the first beat and then strike a pose, however weird the pose was, and then take a step on the third beat. So it would go it would go step, pose, step. And since it's in 3, that was the entirety of every measure, was just step, pose, step, step, pose, step. This is important for us because it's cool to hear on the second beat of every Sarabande in the suite. You can hear something fancy. So in this one, it starts off, here's beat 1. Whoops. Beat 2 has a big chord. Here's beat 1, and now here's beat 2. So it has a little fancy trill on beat 2. So the music kind of reflects what was going on in the dance. So they have that weird kind of voguing that they're doing. This dance was actually rated R and unfit for polite society for a very long time, until it kind of normalized. But I'm sure you want to know the reason why it was rated R, right? Okay, the reason. Are you ready? The reason that this dance was rated R was because the men and the women touched hands. Oh my gosh. So in most of the courtly dances that they were used to back in the day, there was no touching whatsoever. You were on your line, the other person was on their line, and you just kind of danced across from each other, but you never touched. But in this one, you actually did, so it was quite a big deal. So I just want you to keep that in mind as I play the Sarabande and listen for those fancy second beats. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite movement. I love the Sarabande. So we're off to the next piece, which is a very Nan piece. It's another mashup, and this time it has one of my very favorite hymns, "Be Thou My Vision," and this time I mashed it together with Ashokan Farewell, which you may know from Ken Burns' documentary about the Civil War, but it originally was written for, so Jay Unger wrote it for his campers at his fiddle camp as a goodnight tune for them. So here is Ashokan Farewell and Be Thou My Vision.
Wow. That was just lovely. Thank you. Wow.
Thank
Beautiful.
you. That's one of my favorite ones.
Yes.
Well, now in the Bach suite, we are to the danciest movements. Um, these these dances were actually kind of country dances as opposed to the aristocratic type of dances that were popular in courts. And these were more kind of rural dances. And in this section of the dance suite, there was always two dances that we would we play them in like what I like to call very formally the sandwich form, where you play one dance and then you have a different one that contrasts, and then you play that same dance that was at the beginning. So it has like some little bookends on either side. So these are called the miscellaneous dances here because in the Bach suites, at least, they're not the same for every suite. Usually, all the pieces that I have played for you, there is one of them in every cello suite that he wrote. So all 6 of them have a Sarabande and a Courante and an Allemande and a Prelude. But these miscellaneous dances can be bourrées. They can be gavottes. They can be minuets. And in Suite 1, they are a pair of minuets. And minuet is, I guess the word comes from the French for delicate. So I guess this is a more delicate country dance. But here is minuet 1 and 2. And you'll know exactly when I switch from minuet 1 to minuet 2 because the tone completely changes. And it makes sense as a musical sandwich. You don't want to have bread in the middle of your sandwich. You've got to have something contrasting. So hopefully you'll be able to hear that sandwich form in there.
I don't know if we're muted.
I think I just heard somebody's dog bark. Okay, we're good. me a chance to drink some water too. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I guess I'm gonna play the next piece. This next one is it's very different than what you've been hearing before. It's kind of virtuosic. There's a lot of things going on that are kind of extended techniques, or actually there's probably just one thing going on that's an extended technique, which is, normally my left hand is changing the pitch of the string, and my bow or my plucking, fingers are making the sound. They're just producing the sound. But in this case, in this piece, I'm going to be doing a little bit of left hand plucking. So that is going to be going on while I'm playing while I'm pressing the string down with the left hand. I'll be also plucking sometimes, which I think is kind of cool. There are some fun harmonics, and it all makes sense because this piece was actually written by Prokofieff, originally for piano, but transcribed in this amazing transcription by Piatigorsky, who was an amazing cellist. And so I hope you enjoy March from Music for Children. Oh, and just a side story here. I used to play with the Savannah Philharmonic, and one time I was walking into an ice cream parlor after rehearsal with my cello on my back, and the person behind the counter said, "If you play something for me, I'll give you a free ice cream cone." And this is what I played for him. And I got the free ice cream.
Nice.
I like that one. Marvelous, marvelous. Bravo, bravo.
Kind of a fun one. It's so playful. I love playing that one and just imagining a little march going by and somebody tripping at the very end. It's probably me. Very klutzy. Okay, so we're at the end of the Bach suite here, and the piece that exists at the end of every Bach suite, every cello suite that Bach wrote, was a gigue. That's spelled Gigue, and that is the French version of the word jig. which of course is an English and Irish dance that's kind of it's in compound meter, so it sounds very piratey usually. And you may have heard the term, the jig is up. Some historians believe that the jig is up is actually referring to the end of the night, because at the end of the dance suite, there's always a jig. And so when the jig is up, it's the end of a good time. So here is the jig from the first suite of Bach. And it's not going to be our very last piece, but we're getting close. So we are to the end of our program now. I have one very special piece for you before the end. But I just want to say thank you so much to Karen and Larry. Thank you for having this idea. I believe it was Larry's idea. And then Karen was making it happen and setting it up with me and talking to me about how we're going to make this work. And so thank you so much. This is an incredible idea. How creative of you. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for stepping outside your comfort zone and doing something crazy like this. Thank you. Thank you.
This has been really special. Really.
This has been very special.
I'm so glad that you're liking it. I honestly, I wasn't sure if I could play a concert. I'm so out of practice. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to see if I can still play my cello and in front of people. So
This is
yes, you can.
great treat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting music and musicians like me during such a crazy, crazy time. And I'm going to end the program, and I'm sure we'll have question and answer session afterwards, so I'm not going anywhere. But the musical part will be over. But I'm going to leave you with an arrangement of one of my very, very favorite songs ever written. It really means so much to me, and that is Pure Imagination.
Bravo, bravo.
Bravo. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes.
Man, thank you.
Yes,
That was
I
fabulous.
appreciate this. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Really was.
It's very
Beautiful,
nice.
beautiful.
Well, so I think, Karen, are we expecting questions maybe?
I said people could ask questions if they would like to. So
So I have a question. The last song that you played, you said it was meaningful to you. We weren't familiar with it, and we Googled it, and it's from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Willy
So,
Wonka.
yes. Yeah. I really grew up with the movie version with
Wilder.
Yes, thank you, Gene Wilder. Thank you. I knew I was going to forget his name. And I just loved it, and especially that song. It just, I don't know. It's amazing because it talks about if the world isn't how you want it, you can imagine it being better, or making the world a better place in your mind, and then hopefully, with what you do. So I really love that song, and it has helped me make it through some hard times. But I did get to play in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think it was this past September. I think so, but time flies when you're having fun, and so I'm not sure if that's accurate. But it was an amazing show. But you know what? It was a lot darker than I remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
At one point, I looked up on the stage, and the ballerina had been ripped apart by mice or rats, and I was like, oh my god, almost lost my spot.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Version, not the Gene Wilder version.
Right.
Yeah, that was the
That's right.
touring Broadway company,
Yeah.
not the Gene Wilder version. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
pretty sure I would have been scarred if I had seen that as a kid.
Yes. Well,
Nan,
we're
Linda,
going to listen to that.
Nan, could you tell us a little bit about your instruments?
Oh, sure. And Karen, I'm not sure if I caught what you just said just then. Okay.
I knew that Linda and John had a question.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to hear about your cello and
Yes,
because it's
okay.
beautiful.
It is an interesting instrument. It was made in 1780. So I always like to think that George Washington was alive when this thing was being constructed.
Wow.
It scares me to death that I carry this thing around on my back around different places, and that I'm responsible for keeping it alive, and it's been alive for so long, and it's very scary. But it was made in Germany, like I said, around 1780 by a guy named Johann, and he's not very well known. I could not afford an instrument this old with a well-known maker. Those can run like millions of dollars. Yeah, it's just very old. I'm not sure even who the previous owners were, but my teacher had a supplier of instruments that she really trusted, and he was in Bethesda, Maryland, and so basically he would just send down these giant boxes that had cellos, in bubble wrap, in a case, in all this stuff, so they wouldn't get hurt, shipped by FedEx. And I got a couple of those sent down and tested them out for a couple weeks and sent them back, and I finally got this one, and it is amazing. Now, it's a freaky instrument because it's kind of smaller than normal cellos. Normally they're a certain size, but this one is very skinny this way. So I feel like I'm getting around really easily on it because I can, it's not as thick. And so it's wonderful because of that, but it has a really dark sound that I just fell in love with. And I really wanted a bigger instrument. Like they have something called a Montagnana type of cello, which has very wide hips, and it's a big instrument. And I'm a rather large person, like I'm almost 6 feet tall, and so having a small instrument, I really was not down for that. But you just really can't help what you fall in love with. So I'm a big person with a smaller instrument, and what can you do?
It's wonderful.
Any other questions? The most popular one that I get is, why did I start playing the cello? Anybody want to hear that story?
Sure.
Okay, some of you probably already know it, but I was in 5th grade in public school, elementary school, and some teacher came around and was asking us if we wanted to play an instrument. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to play the saxophone, because I thought it was so cool. And like all the jazzy people played saxophone. I wanted to be cool and jazzy. So I definitely was going to play the saxophone. But then my mom took me to see, I think it was probably my first James Bond movie. Mm-hmm. It was The Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton, who, looking back at it now, he's not my favorite James Bond. But there was this Russian sniper cellist lady who they like slid down this snowy slope in her cello case, using the cello to steer as they're escaping the bad guys, and she gets a bullet hole in her cello, the Lady Rose, but she plays a concert that night anyway with the bullet hole in there. And I was just like so excited by that movie. I was like, oh, cellists have the most fun. They have like exciting lives. And so I was just, the next day I was like, never mind about the saxophone. I want to play the cello. And I mean, my life has been pretty darn exciting. There's no guns involved like that, but it's a big adventure for sure. So, yeah, you never know what is going to cause you to go on this life path that just you keep for the rest of your life. You just never know. Some James Bond movie turned me into a cellist.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you also play the Britten cello suites?
No, I haven't ever played the Britten cello suites, but I heard that they are amazing, and I've heard them, and they're awesome. So
please learn to play them and play it for us. Play them for us.
Yes, definitely. That's a good quarantine thing that I should be doing. Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Sure.
This question comes from my being a retired lawyer and our son being a bench chemist, and neither one of us plays any musical instrument. So, but I know that he has his hands insured, and I've always wanted to ask a professional cellist about hand insurance. Can you make any comments about that? What is that?
Yeah, so I don't have hand insurance, but that's something that I do think about a lot, because I am, one of the things that I love to do besides playing music is do like handy person things around the house. So like for a couple birthdays ago, I got a circular saw for my birthday. So it's that kind of thing, and I have a compound miter saw and a jigsaw and like all these saws, right? Which you should really be allergic to as a cellist. But I do, so I use my hands a lot in dangerous ways, and I'm constantly thinking about what if something happened and then I just couldn't do this anymore. So yeah, I probably should have some insurance on my hands, but I don't know anything about it. And honestly, health insurance is bad enough right now. So I feel like if I need more insurance, I'm not going to be able to make it. But yeah, I need to be more careful though, for sure.
Nan, that was really lovely. I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit more about some of your favorite performance venues? You mentioned the Fox Theater is one that you enjoyed. Are there some other places in Atlanta or elsewhere that you particularly enjoyed playing?
Oh, yes. So my favorite venue for chamber music, I play at this venue with my cello quartet. We haven't been doing a lot of stuff lately because, we're not really supposed to be getting together. And actually, our last couple of concerts were canceled because it was right at mid-March when everything started going down. But Spivey Hall is our absolute favorite place to play. It is just, I think, not even 20 minutes from town, and it is a world-class hall, just acoustically, everything. It's amazing there. When you are sitting in any row of that hall, it feels like the person is playing right next to you. I've seen a lot of concerts there and played probably 10 or 12 concerts there, and I just am blown away every time at just the acoustics of that. But nothing beats the Fox in terms of history and like mystery also. It's so old and just cool, and so many weird things in there that you wonder what they're for. Obsolete objects just up in the rafters, you're wondering what that is. That's really probably the coolest place I've ever played. But Spivey Hall, if you haven't been there, you should check it out. They usually, I don't know what they're gonna do these days, but they usually have a concert series there for smaller groups, like guitarists and cello quartets.
I agree. Spivey Hall is just fabulous, but the Fox does have a special magic. So thank you.
Yay! Anybody else?
Tell about playing for the Falcons advertisement.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so wow. I'm just trying to think of what happened first. It was such a whirlwind. So you probably know that musicians are busiest times of the year. Well, the busiest time of the year, hands down, is Christmas. Seems like a lot of people want Christmas music wherever they are. And the Atlanta Pops, which I play with, we do a lot of outreach concerts where we're going to places where they don't have an orchestra, and we're doing like little holiday concerts for them. So it was around Christmas, probably like the 20th or something like that, where it's just, you just can barely keep it together with all the gigs going on. And somebody from the Falcons called we had an intern at the time working for our cello quartet. And so we had to set this thing up really fast. They wanted us to play and back up a very famous rap artist from Atlanta who rapped about Atlanta and just, I don't know, it's kind of an icon here, especially for people my age. We're in the 80s and 90s. He was kind of a big deal. His name is Jermaine Dupri, and they wanted us to kind of revamp his track. It's called Welcome to Atlanta. And it was going to be like a Falcons theme song, So we had to, I remember being on a tour bus with the Atlanta Pops going to Alabama and writing out the cello parts to that rap song so that we could record it the next day and then shoot a music video with the recording. They said on the top of the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so on the roof of it. And I was like, doesn't it open? And are we gonna fall off? And oh my gosh. So it was really exciting and really stressful, and oh my gosh, it was crazy. And just one little story from that time when we were recording the the music for it, which is, it's really simple. Dun 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 dun. Welcome to Atlanta. So we were doing that little dun 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 part, and the recording engineer was like, "Okay, we need rougher. We need it to sound harder, harsher." And so I was playing at my max capacity, like I was really just digging into the string and everything. But I was willing to try, and so all I did was knit my eyebrows, and then I played it again, and he was like, "Much better." So it worked. But yeah, that's definitely, that's something I'm never gonna forget. It was too foggy for us to shoot on the roof that actual day that we were supposed to shoot. So we shot like within the stadium, but we did get to go up to the roof, and I am super acrophobic. So when we were climbing up into the like rafters, so I remember walking behind that halo screen. Do you know what I'm talking about? If you've been to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, there's this really high TV screen that is like a ring of TVs, and we were up there behind that and then walked up above it to get onto the roof, and I've never been more scared in my life. Ooh, jelly. I had jelly knees for sure.
Wow.
It was super fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I was
Thank
gonna.
you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Oh,
Nan, I was just gonna mention, in case they haven't seen, Cello Rap is my favorite. She does a fabulous job bringing children into her world of cello and making it fun for them. At the Spivey Hall, I've seen her do children's concerts several times, and the Cello Rap is one of my favorites. So if you haven't seen that, you should really check that out.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel and a website. If you want to know more about me, nancello.com is the place to go. If you go to nankemberling.com, that's all about my new CD that's coming out, but it's all pop music where I'm playing the cello and singing, so it's a little bit different than what you saw tonight. But if you want to know more about this type of thing that I do, nancello.com is the place to go, and you can shoot me a line, and we can stay in touch if you like. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. What a treat.
Thank you, Larry and
this
Karen.
was,
Thank
this
you,
was
Larry and
just
Karen.
absolutely wonderful. And Larry and Karen, what a gift.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank
Thank you,
you,
Nan.
Larry, Karen, and
Gift to
Nan.
Nan.
Thank you all.
It was a wonderful break. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so
You can
nice.
see why I stalked her all that time to get her to be my teacher.
Yes.
And now they know if they
We
want
can go
lessons,
off,
they
so.
just carbs do a good job at getting lessons with me. You can get some bread.
Bread.
I'm here for it.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Saturday evening.
Awesome.
Wonderful break. Yeah,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Wonderful.
It was.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
Lovely.
much.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.